Hi, I'm Nathan from Serious Geeks, and today's Tactica is going to cover the Judiciar for Codex Space Marines. Quite topical because there has been a clarification exactly how fighting last and fighting first works in the chapter approved that's recently been released. The Judiciar has actually become a very relevant model. As always, we will cover that, but let's start with his stat line. He has the standard movement of 6, that's not too bad, it's standard with what you expect of a Space Marine. He has a weapon skill 2+, which is nice. 3+ ballistic skill, well, he has got a pistol. Strength 4, toughness 4, 5 wounds, because he's primarily a support character, so he's got 1 wound more than the usual Space Marines. And he has 4 attacks, which is actually quite good. Again, Primaris gives +1. Leadership 9 and a 3+ save. Immediately, looking at the stat line, geared for close combat, but fairly average stat line for a support character. Nothing too shabby, nothing too exciting to shout about. Moving on to his weapons, he has the Absolver bolt pistol, which is a range 18 pistol, which is a very nice amount of range. It's strength 5, -1 AP and 2 damage. As far as pot shots count, it's pretty good. You have a reasonable chance of wounding a Space Marine and taking him out of the game. If you've got the opportunity to fire it, do so. It's a nice little opportunity to do a little bit extra damage. -1 AP in the Assault Doctrine is going to be -2 AP, so it's actually fairly hefty as well. His close combat melee weapon is an Executioner Relic Blade. Now this thing has +3 strength, which takes him to a nice hefty strength 7, -3 AP, which is equivalent of a power sword, and it does 2 damage apiece. So it's instantly taken out a Space Marine per hit, which is very nice. We kind of see that as a standard now. But also its abilities is each time an attack is made with this weapon, an unmodified wound roll of a 6 inflicts 1 mortal wound on the target in addition to normal damage. I guess that's to simulate an execution style attack or carving through multiple people. It is a very hefty blade and it looks like it could do it. With Shock Assault and this guy's 4 attacks base, you could get quite a few attacks that could down a reasonable character, do a lot of damage. A couple of 6s in there on the wound roll and you've got a few mortal wounds through. It's a nice weapon. It's basically a relic which you don't have to pay for. So looking at his abilities, what does he have? Angels of Death. It's kind of standard, it's what we expect. For him, it's most likely going to be Shock Assault is relevant. He has Blade Parry, which is a 4+ invulnerable save. Essentially the same as a Rosarius. He's basically some sort of high chaplain anyway, so it makes sense. With his Primaris 5 wounds, this makes him quite survivable, even though he's only got a 3+ save, so that's very handy. His biggest weakness on that basis would be lots of attacks, an Orc Mob, for example. He's only got toughness 4. The last ability is his main reason to take him, Temper Mortis. At the start of the fight phase, you can select one enemy within 3 of this model. That unit is not eligible to fight until after all eligible units from your army have done so. This means they're going to be fighting last. So, if someone charges into you, instead of having the advantage of going first, you can actually carve a massive hole in the enemy line by taking this charging unit out. The beauty is, it doesn't have to be just someone engaged with him, they have to be within 3 inches of him, that's the only criteria. It's a fairly defensive buff when you consider it, because let's be honest, he's slow moving and it's people within 3 inches of him who are affected by it. It's essentially a defensive buff, but it means that, say you get charged by a big mob of Orc boys, you can potentially take out a lot of them before they have a chance to do anything. And when you have elite units that are charging other elite units, it could be the deciding factor. Now, if we look at his faction keywords, there's Imperium, Adeptus Astartes and Chapter, kind of standard. His keywords, Infantry, Character, Primaris and Judiciar. So, looking at him, as an elite character without the core keyword, he's only ever going to be a support element to other units in the army. He's not going to benefit much from your own support units and your own support abilities from characters. And he can never be a mandatory HQ choice. He is Primaris, which means you can use things like transhuman physiology or gene wrought might on him, but you're probably going to be saving those for other units that can generally wring a little bit more out of that command point. But it's a nice little addition to bear in mind if you want to keep him alive for longer, or if you want to score a few more wounding hits. Common to all Space Marine characters, he does have access to Only in Death Does Duty End. That's quite a nice one, it means that he can fight even if taken out. Again, it's one of those, if you have an opportunity to use it, you can take someone out as you go down, and it's essentially a free kill. Now, what sort of relics will you give this guy? Well, he's going to be on the front lines. You want him to be exposed to the enemy, so something that increases his survivability wouldn't go amiss. The Armor Indomitus springs the mines, adds an extra wound to the bearer, gives him a 2+ armor save, and he gets to enjoy a 3+ invulnerable save once per game. This is my standout choice for him. It keeps him alive for a lot longer, but he could have something else like a Purgatorus, make his pistol a little bit more effective. Again, it's not something you desperately need with him, but it's a nice little addition. It wouldn't go amiss if you did have it. Overall though, this guy is a ready-made relic bearing character. He has a decent weapon already. He probably needs a bit of survivability because he's going to be on the front lines, but you don't have to do that if you want to save some points. His best use, well, if I'm honest, his best use would be in a more defensive sort of army, or one that marches up the table steadily using a heavy amount of infantry, including close combat forces. He could work if you launch him forwards into someone, but you're going to expect him to receive a charge. So on that basis, coming from an impulsor would be quite useful because he can jump out of the impulsor right into position, threaten into position alongside a bunch of blade guard, and then the opponent will have to countercharge you before you can charge them the next turn. It can be quite a useful ability to take advantage of his Temper Mortis. He's fairly cheap, so overall I think on that basis he's quite good. If you're planning on marching up the table, he will keep people alive a bit longer from an assault force, but most shooting armies probably won't make use of him because he's not quite as killy as he could be. He's an average fighter. He's not bad, he's okay, but he's quite vulnerable himself to being taken out. Funnily enough, I think he would do better in an Ultramarines army, or perhaps an Imperial Fist army that might be marching up the table, putting down a lot of Primaris bolter fire. I don't think he works quite well enough with things like White Scars, who want to move up the table very quickly, although he would obviously enjoy the +1 damage in the Assault Doctrine. Blood Angels, same sort of thing. He's not quite fast enough, and they're not quite defensive enough to really take advantage of him. But when it comes to marching up the table for the less assault-based chapters, who might still have some assault units within them, he could be a great addition, and I think that's where he really shines. Anyway, that's all I'm going to say about the Judiciar at the moment. He's quite a good, useful addition that can be a counterfoil to a charging force, particularly light infantry. Someone like Dark Elder, Drukhari, they're going to really struggle to survive a Space Marine onslaught if they're made to strike last. That's a nice little combination that you can use to really hurt them, and they're going to want to charge you anyway. So that is a good use against what is essentially the top competitive performer at the moment. So that's it for me. There's not much to say on the subject. He's quite a straightforward choice, even though his usage is a bit more strategic. Please let me know your thoughts in the comments below, like and subscribe, and I'll catch you all soon. Peace out.